I'm Esther, and you might remember me from our first series, Lockdown Lessons, which was all about how to maintain our well-being during the pandemic and beyond. So this series, we're shifting the focus a bit, given that we're now easing out of lockdown. While this does mark progress to some degree, we're now faced with re-entering the world again, and that world was shut off for quite some time. So this might feel exciting for some, but it could also be filled with fear, dread, uncertainty for others. Maybe it's a bit of both for you. But however you're feeling, we want you to know that we're here, and we hope that this next series will provide some helpful tips and insights into how we can look after ourselves as we navigate this new chapter together. So I'm also thrilled to welcome my new co-host, Hadil Arman, who will be joining me today. You may remember her from episode 5 of the last series, so we're thrilled to have her back. Welcome, Hadil.
Hey everyone, and hello Esther. I'm Hadil and I'm part of the Wellbeing team at Wandsworth. So this year, the theme of Mental Health Awareness Week was nature. So we thought we would kick off by exploring how, as we ease out of lockdown, connecting with nature can help us maintain our well-being. So we're delighted to be joined by Hannah Burton, Wellbeing Officer at Share Garden, and Robert Boyce, Head of Training at Share Community. Share is a training centre for adults with additional support needs. They offer a range of courses to support students to develop their skills and lead happy, healthy, independent lives. At the Garden in Tooting, they offer accredited courses in Horticulture, as well as therapeutic gardening sessions. This garden is open to the public, and many of the plants grown are available to buy from their social enterprise Share Nurseries. So before we get into today's discussion, we wanted to find out what's the most beautiful thing you've seen in nature.
I'd say the mini beasts. I like the multicolored dragonflies, the stag and longhorn beetles. I'm amazed by the iridescent quality of their bodies, and I find the more time I spend in the garden, the more beautiful things I see.
I think for me, it's big old trees that are really gnarly and old. I think there's something really peaceful and grounding about something that has been around for a really long time. We have one in our garden that I think was planted in like 1914 or something.
Wow.
And just like to think about what that tree has seen. I think it's quite a calming thing to have in your vicinity.
We're also very lucky at this site as well, because we've got some very, very old trees. So like Hannah, all us tree huggers go around and occasionally just hug some of the trees because they are very old. If we could hear the stories they had to tell, we could be sitting listening for hours, but we can't hear the story, so we just have a hug instead.
I think that works well.
It does, yeah. Robert, how does the actual hug make you feel? Could you explain or describe that feeling?
For me, it's a bit like a grounding. It's a bit like saying hello. I find it calming. I find it humbling, and I find it enjoyable.
Yeah, it's something that's not going to move, isn't it? So it's bigger than you. It's giving you shade. It's giving you air. It's really kind of feeding the whole planet. I love walking in the woods because I feel, that kind of grounding.
And what about the mini beasts? What kind of experience do they give you, Robert?
It's an amazement that nature has created so many different forms, so many different colours, which all work together in harmony to produce beautiful gardens. Sometimes the best thing to do in a garden is not actually to do anything, just to sit and listen, hear, smell, and you see so many different wonderful things.
That kind of seeing, hearing, smelling, feeling thing, I think that can be grounding in itself, can't it? Just taking a moment to engage with what's around you, even if you're walking to the shops. It can be not just diverting, but like really quite soothing.
Yes, a number of our students love to find worms, and it might be their first experience of coming in contact with a worm, so it's quite an interesting thing, and it's wiggly and it's moving around, but it gives us an opportunity to talk about how if we didn't have worms in our soil, we probably wouldn't have soil to be able to grow the plants, and how important they are. The same with the bees, the same with the moths, the same with the woodlice. And seeing all of those creatures just gives us opportunities to talk about nature and how it helps us live.
And then they can make that connection before. So if we are doing a long session of weeding and we've dug up lots of creepy crawlies when we've been weeding, then our students will see like the robins and the birds coming to feast on whatever we've dug up. And they kind of make that link between, so we've been pulling weeds out from here. We turned the ground over. There's bugs everywhere. So now the birds are coming to eat the bugs. and they're sort of making those links between the activity they've been doing and how that fits into the sort of natural world around us.
Yeah. And talking of, I guess, the impact of nature, given the last year we've had, what impact do you think nature's had on you and your well-being kind of during lockdown?
For myself, I was really fortunate in that when we first got locked down last March, I was able to come and work here at the garden, because even though we were closed to our students, we still had plants to look after, and I was able to come here pretty much every day and help out with some various bits of maintenance around the garden. And I think if I hadn't had this place to come to, I would have found the first few months of the pandemic really, really challenging. Like the whole, what's going on? When is this going to end? When am I going to see my family again? All of that kind of stuff. I think being busy here, having work to do, having my hands in the soil, having birds to listen to, it stopped me from cycling around those really frightening thoughts. I unfortunately came down with COVID just around Christmas time, and the first thing I did when I was able to leave self-isolation was I went for a big walk on the common, because I have to get out, I have to be outside. It was Boxing Day, it was freezing cold. I thought, no, I don't care, I'm going to put my boots on, I'm going to go and march through the common for an hour because I need to be outside.
When you come back after a walk like that, what's the difference? How do you feel?
I feel like just kind of like a lifting, I think, of weight and pressure, because being outside, you've got more air, you feel like you can breathe easier, you feel like there's a lot more space around you, you don't feel quite as enclosed. I think, it's a release of pressure and a lifting of weight off me.
My experiences are similar, slightly different. I worked at our main building in Battersea. So when the lockdown was first enacted, I was working from home. I was working from home as the majority of our staff were working from home. And I think, like everybody who was working from home, it gave us a new insight into trying to work in lockdown with families. And if it wasn't for nature, I would have found life a lot more stressful and a lot more difficult. I'm very, very, very fortunate enough to have a garden. So I think from the moment of lockdown, I was in the garden as much as is humanly physically possible. Everything that Hannah has said about a sense of lifting, a sense of calmness, a sense of space, having a viewing distance, which wasn't just 2 meters in front into a brick wall. It was out into green or out into clouds or out into blue space, was so necessary for me. I also have a dog. And when you have a pet, there is a necessity to go out and look after them for exercise. And so at the early stages of lockdown, I was obviously still going out for walks with my dog, but my children were coming more with me and we were spending a little bit more time walking the dog. So it provided a different way of us connecting. We found we could reopen services for our students, and that was a real... we tried as soon as possible through re-evaluating the space, making it COVID safe, the building, walk routes, sanitization things, so that we could have people not in the building, but in the garden space, because we knew that would be a really beneficial tool for those who, like everyone in the country, was experiencing a lot of change to their structure, change to their routine, change to their normal days. So the ability to have the garden open, we knew was going to benefit a number of individuals. What we didn't know was how many different people who didn't normally use the garden were going to want to come and spend some time in the space. And that was wonderful to see.
Yeah, we've acquired a good few permanent students here at the garden from that, who would never have thought that gardening or horticulture was for them, and they had, they tried it for a few weeks last year because they had nowhere else they could go at the time, and they're still with us because they enjoyed it so much. Yeah, and 1 or 2 of those who are with us and that have actually moved on to some extra work we're doing external from the garden to give them, to support them in voluntary work and work skills, so they've got a direction that they may be able to go to after they finish their working at Shire. So the lockdown was really challenging,
But it was also, once we were able to open the doors, we knew that initially we would have to support those who were coming in with trying to understand the impact of the lockdown and the impact of not being able to see friends and family. But once we did that, the ability to be in space, to be have some sort of structure like they had before, different, but some sort of structure, and be out in the open, the garden was a godsend.
I think for a lot of people, it was almost like the shock, obviously, of the pandemic and everything like that pushed us into trying to take care of our well-being in a way that we possibly haven't before with regards to nature.
Yeah.
What do you think these things, like in terms of the garden, nature, and everything that comes with that, what do you think it teaches us about nourishing our own well-being?
A number of the people that we support work in a very kinesthetic way. They like to touch, they like to feel, they like to see, they like to smell. I think nature, plants, flowers give us that opportunity. If you run your hand through a pot of thyme, for instance, you can't help but smell the aroma. If you run your hands through lavender or through grass, you can't help but feel the texture of the grass or the smell of the lavender. It helped, I think, especially over the challenging periods of March through to September last year. Just being in open space helped people with their well-being. The fact that there was some space when for the majority of the rest of the day they were having to be locked in, as it were. They were in lockdown. You can't go and see your friends, you can't walk to the shop, but you could come to the garden, and you knew that you would have space, and you knew that you would hear some interesting sounds, bird sounds, not just TV sounds, and you knew that you might be able to smell or touch or get your hands dirty. And I think that helped a number of people who were, as Hannah said, anxious about, when is this going to end? Why has this happened? What's going on? It enabled them to put some of those thoughts to the back burner and just be calm in a space.
Almost like an outlet of everything that they're going through.
Indeed.
Can you tell us a little bit more about what Share Garden does and sort of the role it's played for students and staff during lockdown, but also now?
The Share Garden is one of our training projects at Share Community. We use it to deliver accredited qualifications and some therapeutic horticulture. During lockdown, we found that the garden was one of the places that we could open up as soon as possible to make it accessible for our students to return and have some sort of structure, some sort of social engagement in a safe way. And that also worked for our staff as well. Prior to the garden reopening, we were engaging with most of our students online and via telephone, keeping in contact because the pandemic was a bit scary for all of us. So we knew that we needed to keep some contact with those who we were working with, and that was done through our well-being and our family liaison officers. And then they identified that some of the students would be willing to come back or come and use a service if it was safe. So we asked staff if they would be willing to do different activities in the horticulture training space, and staff really jumped to the idea. So we had our My Community and Me, we had our arts and craft, we had sports in small groups, separated and socially distanced, attending the garden while a lot of the country was in lockdown. It enabled us straight away to see how lockdown was impacting on some of our learners, and we found straight away that some of them were finding it really, really difficult. Loss of weight, loss of communication skills, and losing a sense of structure.
There was also some really heartbreaking declines in mental health to see.
Yes.
It was really hard to see the change that just those couple of months had wrought on people that we know really well, and the person that was in front of us was completely different to the one we'd known not 2 months prior.
So the garden gave us a space where we could conduct some type of normalized activities and re-engage with our beneficiaries in a way which was helpful. And I think if we weren't able to have people at the garden during the tail end of last year, I think a lot of people would have found it a lot more difficult working their way through the lockdown. And I'll say staff as well as students would have found things a lot more challenging.
Some of the activities that we did when we first opened up were pretty chilled out. We did a lot of gardening work. So we had, obviously, the weather last spring, summer was spectacular. So we had weeds out of control, and we had crops like coming up, and we had a lot of gardening work to do for those who wanted to. We had some really interesting little art projects going on. We have an art tutor came down, and she delivered a day a week, and we had painting going on. We had people making little sculptures out of found items around the garden. We were doing some photography work with iPads. Another one of our groups started going on walks around the hospital grounds to sort of get to know different areas. We had scavenger hunts and just lots of kind of different ways to use the area in a way that was helpful for our students. And one thing that Robert didn't say that we also did was, for those who couldn't engage with us on Zoom, we started basically delivering share to students at home. So we sort of filled up our van with gardening kits. I think we gave all of our students that were at the garden, and then some other people who were interested, we gave them seeds to sow, a house plant to look after.
They also had instruction sheets and guides on how to plant, how to tend, how to care. And then we shared the images on Zoom when they caught up
and
during the pastoral
we
sessions.
Got photos back from the families about the plants. We had some of our students would like get their plants out when they came onto Zoom. They would get their plants off the shelf to show their friends, and that was really, really lovely.
I think a bit of a legacy of that is that at Altenburg now, at our site, which has our other project, if you go there now, you'll see pots outside the building where they're growing herbs, they're growing flowers. And one of the other projects is, I think, since they were at the garden, they've sort of brought that back to our main office, and they're trying to do it a little bit in that space as well.
That's so fantastic. And I'm just forever amazed at essentially the combination of things that happened during lockdown and how you were able to keep things going, and how the garden sort of served both staff and students throughout. Yes. Obviously, the lockdown was exceptionally difficult in so many ways, but it did force some kinds of different thinking on how to do things, because the situation was as it was and there was so much uncertainty. You talked about legacy. What do you think lockdown enabled in terms of creativity for the garden and ways of doing things that maybe if there hadn't been a lockdown might not have happened?
I think it gave students a chance to find things out about themselves they didn't, or uncover skills that they didn't realise they had. We have some of our current cohort were not gardeners prior to the lockdown. They discovered last summer that they actually really enjoyed it and wanted to stay with us. I think we discovered some skills with digital technology that we didn't realise our students possess. Like we have some guys who are far more chatty on Zoom, we discovered, than they are in a classroom setting. And that was really interesting to see how some of our students engage in those different ways. And that's given us a lot to think about on how we deliver our service, I think, in years to come.
The thing which astounded me during lockdown was the resilience of our learners. The fact that even though change can be really challenging for a number of our guys, they adapted. They had the right support structures in place to enable them to see a way through. And I think Share was part of a circle of support which enabled a pathway so that there was some hope at the end of it. Seeing the abilities of the learners, especially some who historically had been non-communicative, using tools to get online, to contact friends, to actually start their own little networking groups that hadn't been established before COVID, was brilliant. And part of our job now is to nurture that and to make sure that keeps on going. That sense of, oh, well, I can email and contact my friends and have a WhatsApp chat with 3 of us, and it'd be nothing to do with Share. It's just us and our friends.
It would be really nice now to introduce some of your fantastic students who have very, very kindly got involved with this episode to give us their insights on life at Share Garden. And I can't wait for the listeners to meet them. So I'll pass over to Hannah to introduce Charlotte, Louis, John and Ian.
So these are 4 of our horticulture students. So Charlotte, John and Louis have been students at a garden for a good couple of years now. They're really confident and experienced gardeners. They know exactly what to do around the site. Ian is one of our newer members. He's been coming to Share for a long time, but he's new to gardening. He's one of our, I don't want to say success stories because it sounds like he wasn't a success before, but he's one of our wins from last summer, I think. So we sat down and went through some of the questions. I think it's quite difficult to hold like a long 20-minute, half-hour conversation with some of our students. They may have various communication difficulties, and being presented with too much information can be completely overwhelming, especially if it's in a situation that's unfamiliar or from a person or a place that you don't quite know where it's coming from or who's talking. So I thought the best way for us to talk would be to have more of a kind of facilitated conversation. So we all sat down for a chat together in the sunshine. I think you can hear some birds and things in the background as well. So we have these lovely big picnic benches and we all sat together and I asked the guys the questions and they chatted away. Okay, all right. So, shall I go first? I'm Hannah. I'm Hannah. Yeah. Charlotte. Ian. Yep. All right, guys. So the first question. Let's see if we can think of our favourite memory or experience in the garden. What do we think? Meeting people. Yeah. Working with the staff. I like working with the staff, like Robert. Yes. Yeah. Hannah. Can you think of Hannah one? Next to me, and Jonathan and Joanne when she's here, and Layla when she comes back. Can you think of one particular thing at the garden that was really good? I like working here. Yeah. I like working here, and I like going outside. Yeah. I like going out doing bird houses. Yeah, doing the contracts. Yeah. Yeah. Going to do the care homes. Yeah. Yeah. I like doing that. Enjoy it. What do you do at the care homes? Mowing and swimming. Yeah. With the new machines. It's like doing a job, isn't it? Yeah, but it's not a paid job. We don't get paid. Yeah. But you like doing it? Yeah. Yeah. For the fun.
I do swimming and the lawnmower.
Yeah, you do swimming and lawnmower as well? Yeah,
but in here. I can't do it because it's doing grass.
Is this hay fever?
High fever and asthma.
Makes you sneeze. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about the garden party, guys?
I mean, I've got that, but I've still got to be careful as well. What about Yeah, I can't wait to have a garden party. I've done it. What, next year?
Did you come to the last one, Ian?
Yeah.
What was the last one like?
Happy.
Happy?
Nice, wasn't it? With Annie Medell's speech.
Yeah, Annie gave a speech.
Yeah, that Annie Medell.
What did we have here at the garden party? Because I wasn't here.
It was loads of games.
Yeah.
Yeah. How are we
a lot
going
of
to get
cakes.
people?
Yeah.
Cakes, drinks, raffles, and music and food. That's it.
Oh, cool. All right.
Yeah. How are we going to get people apart from the COVID?
Well, we can't do no, it's going to be tricky, isn't it?
Well, hopefully this year, COVID will be, the restrictions will be gone by that point.
Yeah, tell me. Yeah. Bye-bye, and don't come back. Don't come back. Once we get rid of it, I don't want it back.
So, what a wonderful start. And where's this garden party?
It's a big part of the shared calendar. As you heard Charlotte describe it, we have a lot of different activities going on.
The students every year look forward to us having a party. And this year, even more so than I think any previous year, they would like us to have a celebration that we're all still here and working together, and that we can be in the garden again and we can sort of get back to some degree of normality. The guys love to show off the garden. They won't say it in those words, but they love the fact that the garden party is in the garden.
I mean, what struck me was so much variety in terms of what students are doing and so much to kind of look forward to even in these times, you know, which is great. Stuff to anticipate, work towards. And I think that's so much of well-being is in that building in goals for ourselves and starting small, starting achievable. But we always talk about SMART goals and they have to feel like they're things that are enjoyable to work towards.
I think that's where we're very, very lucky at the garden. Most things that the students work with have an end result. It might be a flower, it might be a fruit, it might be a leaf. And to see how your input has enabled something to grow, and that might be just through watering it regularly every few days, or it might be through weeding it. But then to take home a bag of that spinach, chard, broccoli, whatever the case may be, and then to come back the next week and ask for another one means that I think we're doing the right thing and people are really gaining from their experience in that space.
You can also tell from the way Charlotte mentioned some of the contract work that we do. There's a number of care homes near to our site and we mow the lawns and we do a bit of weeding there. You know, it's just a little job, but it obviously makes a massive impact to the people who live in those homes. And you can tell from the way John and Charlotte are describing it, they take a real joy in doing that. It's their responsibility, it's something they own, and it's hard work. I mean, they go off in the morning with all of the gear and they come back at lunchtime and they are knackered out, but they really enjoy doing it, and you can tell that from the way they talk about it.
Absolutely, because that is someone else's space as well that you're coming into, and other people are enjoying the space that you're looking after. You're responsible for their, love and enjoyment of the space. So
Yes.
it all comes back around. But that's lovely.
How do you feel when you are in the garden?
Happy. Oh,
Happy.
Happy.
come on, Louis, what do you think?
Very
Happy.
Yeah, happy as well.
What was that other word we said before? Like when we feel really
Happy.
Calm,
yeah.
relax.
And
We
like when you're going to the canteen and people will come up to you and, well, I know you're not allowed, but I know you're not allowed, but you can hug them. Say,
Hug people at the canteen.
hello, how are you? How you doing?
I'll do that sort of wave
Yeah,
and say hello.
Yeah.
I'll
He
do that
does
a
it
lot. I do that a lot.
Yeah.
I do that all the
He
time.
does it everywhere.
Yeah, so do I.
Yeah, microwave.
Especially on the street, we don't talk to.
Microwave.
You see this?
Yeah, we all got one of them.
You showed
Right.
me that.
I've got that as well.
My name is John, and I work here,
Yeah.
and I help people to sell plants and pay for them.
That's lovely, John. What were you saying as well, Charlotte, about how there's lots of space for people?
Yeah, there is.
Yeah.
So one thing I miss is doing the pop-up shop outside the canteen with John and Louis.
So I should explain what John is doing there. The reason John started explaining who he is. At that point, he got up and he took out his ID badge, or not ID badge, but all of our students have a little badge saying like, my name is John, with their picture, and then on the back it's got contact details for sharing. And he was demonstrating what he says to customers and to people who visit the garden. So that's why he sort of stopped in the middle and said, my name is John and this is what I do. John really, really enjoys working with the customers and just meeting people. I mean, you could hear him talking about going around to the canteen, which is next door to where we are in the garden. And they know us quite well. The canteen staff always greet our students by name and they always sort of check in with each other. And yeah, John wants to give them all a hug.
Oh, I thought that was just the loveliest thing. And it just sort of showed to me like the lockdown pains of just that yearning for that, know, and just being like, physical contact. When that went, having to navigate being 2 meters from someone, but having that human instinct that pulls you towards the person.
Yes.
And that physical contact really does bind you and it changes the interaction. So I kind of really felt that. I really did.
I think it's quite difficult because, that's not necessarily the case for these guys, but some of our students have pretty high sensory needs, and some of that can mean that they really enjoy a tactile interaction. And it could be the feeling of a blanket or a cushion, but it also could be physical touch with somebody else. And that could be something that they really rely on to communicate. So not being able to, hold hands or squeeze hands to communicate can throw up massive barriers. And obviously you have to try and balance keeping COVID safe and also maintain this person's well-being in the way you communicate with them and the way you interact with them. It presented us with some pretty major challenges.
Yeah, how did you navigate those? Because that must have been really challenging.
So one thing that we did, this was back in summer when it was really hot, we had little squirty bottles and we filled them with water so we could spray each other. So we were still having that contact and there was still that physical sensation without there being any touch. And that was really effective.
And fun.
We had
like
quite a lot of
I was soaked on many an occasion, and there was squealing around the garden as it was going on. I think that's really important to highlight that, because it really was an area whereby how do we resolve this? How do we give that individual an experience which they need, but which is different from the one that they would normally engage with?
Yeah.
So I think that individual also learned that they could also use this as a stratagem as well as their historic stratagem to go and find someone to touch or to have high five with. It was a new skill that they could add to their armory, as it were.
They continue to mime it now. When you interact with them, they will go even though they haven't got the bottle. That's still something that they hold on to.
I guess it comes back to that point you made, Robert, about adaptability, and that's such a lovely example of that, because it's trying to find something that will achieve a similar goal, but it's not the same, and it's hard to let go of that initially, isn't it? That kind of, it's not going to be a hug, but now I can squirt Robert with water and get away with it
and giggle to my heart's content.
Exactly.
And also feel like you have some sort of control over showing affection or showing, the things that you want to show. Yeah, so it's really nice to hear.
What has gardening taught you about yourself?
Get out of ourselves.
Get out of yourself?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
You can do that.
Like, when you say out of yourself, do you mean doing something different?
Green fingers.
Green
Matthew's
fingers.
gone as well.
Getting green fingers?
Yeah.
Matthew's gone as well.
Ian says that the garden's taught him to get green fingers.
Oh, yeah.
Pink.
I know what garden, not pink.
Green.
I've been like,
He's looking around, isn't he?
huh?
What you said about learning, didn't you?
I've learned a lot of stuff since I've been here. Marine is 1,
Yeah?
putting on is 2,
Yeah?
Yeah.
picking out is 3, and seed sowing's birds. With John. I like doing it with John and Louis and Matt.
So you guys have learned how to look
Yeah.
after the little plants?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah? Does it feel
No.
good to have little plants growing?
Yeah.
Looked after? Yeah.
Yeah. No, me. If they're a customer, I have to do it for them.
So you've learned about how to talk to customers?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
All right,
cool.
Daniel.
I thought this question would be a bit abstract, but we sort of did a little bit of a dry run before we recorded, and I asked the guys if they, well, I just asked them the question and sort of said, what do you make of this question? And they came up with some really amazing stuff, which is pretty much what you just heard there. And I think it's a difficult question even for me to think about, like, what has gardening taught me about myself? I think I don't kill everything that I touch is pretty much as I've got. So I was really, really impressed by what they came up with. And again, I think you can hear from the way they speak about how proud they are of what they have learned. What Ian was saying about coming out of yourself, I can't be sure, but I think I take that to mean about getting you out of your own head. I think if you are outside in the natural world, you are, enjoying what's around you. You can hear the birds, you can feel the wind on your face and the sun on your skin, all that kind of thing. And it takes you out of whatever might be troubling you in your head. If you're looking after plants as well, you've got to think about them. You don't worry about your own problems right now because you've got plants to water. I think knowing Ian, I think that's a reasonable assumption to make. What do you think, Robert? It's an interesting phrase that he used.
Yeah, because I was also thinking that it was something to with him being outside and him just literally physically being outside, because he used to attend an activity in our other site which was internal and class-based and using technology, and he's outside. He has a range of support needs, but he's able to do things which I don't think he was able to do before, and he might have thought, well, I can't really do this, but he's been doing lots and he's been doing it well, and he's been finding out that he's got skills that he may not have thought he had.
Do you know, the one word that sort of came to my mind when I heard that phrase was almost like freedom, like just being able to be free in possibly like what he was doing, and what you were saying, Hannah, as well, just sort of coming out of your own thoughts. Like that's what we would say to do things to ground ourselves back to now and to use that skill to help with whatever it is that's going on, and just allowing us that freedom. That's what I got from it.
Absolutely. And there was a kind of practical element to it as well, I thought, from what I heard. It requires you to sort of learn new things and also to have a space away. I mean, we talk about sitting with yourself sometimes in well-being, and I think there's pros and cons to that. Sitting with your own thoughts doesn't always help us. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, but sometimes we need that nudge, something else to focus on to just feel a little bit better, to cope differently. So yeah, I thought it was a beautiful point, and it got me thinking as well about what got me out of myself during lockdown and what continues to serve me well in that sense, whether it's physically being outside or otherwise.
I think something that comes through in all of these is the way the guys interact with each other, and you can hear Charlotte there listing the job she likes to do with a list of people. And I think those friendships and those, it is friendship. I mean, we call it like peer support, but it's friendship. They do those things together because they enjoy being around each other. And I think it's worth bearing in mind that a lot of our guys are quite socially isolated. The friends they see when they come to share might be the only friends that they ever see. So being able to do things out of your own head, you're with a whole bunch of people, you can chat while you work, you're learning a skill while you're spending time with your friends in a beautiful environment, and all of that I think feeds into some good healthy well-being.
Yeah, I feel like we've met loads of people. Like there's obviously only a few of the students.
Yeah, you can hear them hailing other students around the garden as well.
Daniel, you get that sense, which is absolutely lovely.
How can gardening help people to feel better?
Yep.
Getting out the house, being, because this is social to the hospital.
Yeah.
It's better to
I'm
be
going
out.
to get out of the house and
It's better.
go for a walk with Hannah and the front.
Yeah, when
do.
you're here at the garden, we
Yeah.
don't sit on our butts all day, do
No,
we? What do we do?
Working.
Gardening work,
Work
but
hard,
you
don't
got
we?
yeah, but you still got to have loads of water on your sink.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
dehydrate.
So does working in the garden help you to be like healthy and active?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Human.
I bet we should go on the
Yeah.
garden trips again soon.
What kind of things do we grow in the garden apart from flowers? What's the other thing that we grow?
Fruit.
Yeah.
Don't know what fruits. Strawberries.
Yeah,
Sometimes banana tree.
And
And
you.
Cucumber.
and
Apple.
yeah.
Apple
you.
tree. And
Ians.
what's
And
that?
you.
No, what's the thing you can make with custard? Rhubarb crumble.
We grow a lot of rhubarb, don't we?
Yeah, but Ken uses
And
it to
don't
make
forget
crumble, don't he?
And don't forget spinach.
And the spinach. So all that food that we grow,
We can wash it and eat it.
yeah, we eat it, don't we? So
Yeah.
it's all we learn about
Yeah.
like
You
healthy
gotta wash
food
it
as well,
first.
don't we?
You always wash it first when you eat it because it's been
Absolutely.
on the ground. The ground might have a bit of germs.
Yeah.
Yep, dog.
There's so many things in that one that I really enjoy. I think one of my favourite bits is you can hear Ian joking around about how we grow Ians in the garden. And he said something else about how working in the garden makes you feel human. So that's classic Ian. He comes out with these little one-word insights that just kind of make you think, oh, what?
I think sometimes that those who we work with have a number of challenges, and sometimes they say very simply that the support that they've received, the environment that they're in, the people that they're around have made them feel better, human, supported, liked, loved, cared for. I would think that's very much about Ian.
It's
Very
interesting
much
to
about
think
Ian.
that what makes us feel human is other humans, or like otherness. Sometimes we are obviously all individuals, sure, but the power of community, if we're doing things with others, for others,
Indeed.
receiving love from others.
I mean, how often does Charlotte say that this is a family? Every day that she's here,
Multiple times a day.
and multiple times during the day, that this is her family, and she can talk to her family about different things which affect her life and affect her well-being. And we're quite privileged to be able to have the space to be able to do that.
Yeah, I think Charlotte and John both flagged up about the physical element of it as well. As I said, we work really hard. I mean, just this week we were turning over our compost heaps. We did the mowing at these care homes, which is not an easy job to do when it's about 26 degrees out in the sun. And then that's a massive part of working in a garden or working outdoors, is there is that physical element. Obviously, like physical exercise and healthy eating is a massive part of your well-being. And the guys recognise that. They know it, like spot on. You heard them listing all the vegetables that we grow. We are rolling in spinach and rhubarb, or rhubarb crumble, as Charlotte said. It comes in crumble form on the plant.
best form.
And you could hear something that she said there about sending it to Kenny. Kenny is our chef trainer. And what we do where we can is when we get a good old harvest, we try to send it up to our other site in Battersea. And the chef trainer will use that in the cooking that he does. So it kind of does this whole loop of going from the seed in the garden to the plant that gets harvested, back to the kitchen at our site in Battersea, and then onto the students' plates. It kind of completes this circle of healthy eating and good living, which is one of our key aims at Share, is to promote happy, healthy and independent lives.
Yeah, and Charlotte noted that when she was talking about washing stuff before you eat it, and the process before enjoying something, just kind of the prep involved. In a way, we like to think about that with our minds as well. We have to, look after what goes in and be mindful of it.
What advice would you give someone who was nervous to start gardening?
Look after them. Make them feel welcome. Help them if they're doing something.
Make from cup of coffee.
Make them coffee.
Make them a cup of tea or coffee?
Yeah.
Or a beer?
Hey, no beer here, Ian.
No.
I have in my house. I've got cans of Guinness to drink.
Mine.
Oh.
So would you look after a new person and help show them what to do?
Oh.
Like today,
tomorrow's my
John.
Yeah.
Who were you working with this morning?
Ian.
What were you guys doing together?
My birthday today, but never mind. Tomorrow.
I'm taking the plants out.
Yeah.
And then give the compost to Ian, and you can give it in the thing.
So you guys were working together, and that makes you feel less nervous. Happy.
Yeah.
And Charlotte just got it, but what are you going to do this afternoon? You're going to do some work with the guys? You're going to work with Ian as well?
Ian and John, yeah.
So that's a good way to not feel nervous, isn't it? To make some friends.
Yep.
Tomorrow I'm
make
not
them
here.
a cuppa.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
we promote peer support, peer working. So over the last couple of weeks, John has been working with Ian, but he's also been working with other people. And the key is variety and ranges of different people, and understanding that some people might communicate in this way, some people might not communicate in that way, some people work in this way. And what they're doing, they're finding out about each other, and they're finding out what works and what support is necessary. So John will quite often get the things that Ian can't transport from A to B and just place them in a location so that he can access them.
What John had done on that day was quite clever, because he'd put himself in charge of looking after customers as they came into the garden. So he had positioned himself in such a way that he could support Ian when there were no customers.
Yes.
And then when a customer arrived, he could leave Ian to it, go and help the customer, and then come back. So he sort of like worked out a way that he could do both jobs at once, which I thought was really smart. I don't think that was unprompted. I think he just sort of worked that out for himself, and off he went.
I was pretty bad because I told him I wouldn't help him. I said, you have to figure out what to do. And if I was sitting on a bench and John and Ian figured out what they needed to do, and they did it, and it was quite nice. Yeah, I was sitting on the bench watching John work with Ian, and then disappeared to go and work with a customer. Ian was still working happily. And our role isn't to support people all the time, but to facilitate their ability to work with one another in our space and find ways to be, and find ways to work, and find ways to communicate. And
it's about enabling, isn't it, Robert? I think that's the word I would use.
Yeah, and it's quite a beautiful thing to see.
I really like that Ian was able to sort of give us some feedback on that one, because obviously he is a newer member of the garden. And, I remember when he first joined, Charlotte was making him a cup of tea and was kind of like checking in on him. So that's lived experience for him. I mean, I don't think she ever took him a beer.
This morning, Jodie decided to make him a cup of tea. In fact, she did both of them today, Jodie. So everybody within the project looks to support each other. Yeah. And it's a very supportive environment where people want to help each other.
And it sounds like it's not just you enabling the students are enabling the students as well.
That's the key.
It's just been really nice to get an insight into, first of all, the staff, you guys who make up the team, but as well as the students and the benefit that it has for them directly. Like, it's just been really, really amazing.
We feel very privileged. I personally feel very privileged. I've been working with the organisation for a number of years because I very much enjoy the work that we do with our beneficiaries. And we may teach and we may try to teach them particular skills, but we as staff learn a great many different things from them every single day. Yeah. And that's still the same after 20 years of working with Share Community.
There's so much that is to be learned from Charlotte, Louis, John and Ian, and they've been our real teachers to think about how we start to unlock well-being as we move out of lockdown. There's so much that I've learned from listening to them, and I want to personally thank them as well for their involvement in this.
So with our students, I mean, they are, and this is going to sound so melodramatic, but it's absolute truth, that they are like my motivation and my inspiration pretty much every day. They make me laugh. They astound me with what they can do, what they can remember, what they are achieving day on day. Even if it's the smallest thing, it can make such a difference. And it just makes me so happy. I mean, on Monday, I had this lady who was like showing me what she was working on. And then she turns around and she goes, that spinach shouldn't be there. And off she goes and she starts picking out spinaches that shouldn't be there. And she's noticing, the differences between plants, which is something that she couldn't have done a week prior. And that's a massive achievement for her. And even though it sounds small, it's huge. And the confidence that she was approaching it with was just phenomenal. And that kind of that sends me home with a massive happy feeling inside. And then couple that with working outdoors and in a space that is really beautiful, it feels good to be there because there's air that you can breathe, and there's sunshine, and there's, as I say, there's birds and there's frogs, hopefully. I mean, so you put the two of them together, and that is massively critical to my own personal well-being. I think if I hadn't been fortunate enough to be doing the job I'm doing with the people that I'm working with, I would have found the last year incredibly difficult.
Yeah. If any of the listeners get a chance to go for a walk, a nice peaceful walk. Doesn't matter whether it's first thing in the morning or later. Make sure you're safe, obviously, but go for a walk and get some fresh air. Listen to the sounds around you. If you're lucky enough to get near a park, just go and sit. Sometimes just sitting and listening in a park can be very, very calming, very, very relaxing, wonderful for our well-being. If you get a chance, get out.
You can always visit us.
You can. There you
I was
go.
going to say, yeah, visit, share.
Yeah,
Where can people find you?
We are on the grounds of Springfield University Hospital at Glen Burnie Road.
So that leaves me with saying a huge thank you to Robert and Hannah for joining us today. It's just been such a pleasure to have you and listen to your insights. Thank you so, so much. And also, obviously, a massive thank you to Charlotte, Louis, John and Ian for being our ground force legends and teaching us all a lot about how we can connect with nature and maintain our well-being. So thank you so much. I'm sure you've already made a difference. Take care, stay safe, and goodbye. Just to let you know, we are taking great precautions and changing ways of working across our services during the COVID-19 pandemic. This is really to ensure the safety of all of our staff and patients. The Wellbeing teams at Merton Uplift, Sutton Uplift and Talk Wandsworth are still offering a range of online wellbeing workshops, which are free for residents aged 18 or over who live in or have a registered GP in the boroughs of Merton, Sutton or Wandsworth. If you're interested to find out more about the services that we provide local to you, please find the relevant information in the episode description. Thanks for listening.